Memories of My Yaba Great Aunt, written by James Y. Shi, read by James Y. Shi. That's me. When I was 3, my Agong, grandpa, brought me to Taiwan from California to visit our old family home in the historic town of Lugang. The home was and still is a narrow 2-story brick and wood building off the main road. There, my great aunt, whom I affectionately called Yaba, lived with my ahma, or grandma. At that age, I didn't know calling her just Yaba, which means deaf mute, was rude. It is. I thought it was her name. Those early memories are a fuzzy mixture of feelings, textures, and images. The humid heat, a huge cockroach on the wall, the rough surface of aged wood on my fingers, and of course, Yaba Great Aunt. She was a bustling woman with a kind, round, expressive face and close-cropped, frizzy black hair. She moved with such power and intention, cooking and cleaning around the house. To me, she was a force, a wind that flowed through that space as if she always lived there. But that was not always the case. Like the wind, her origin to me was a mystery. Through bits of conversation with my father and my aunts, I began to piece together her past. Great Aunt was born in 1935 into an impoverished family. She was given up for adoption and went from one family to another. At age 7, she contracted a serious fever. This was during the Second World War, and there was not enough medicine to go around in Taiwan. The fever spread to her throat and ears, nearly killing her. She survived, but the disease had rendered her deaf and mute. Not wanting the extra responsibility, the adopted family gave her back to her grandmother. The old grandmother and the 7-year-old girl survived day by day, going to the town market to pick up discarded lettuce, leftover pork feet, and other unwanted produce. When Great Aunt was 12, my ahma was in her late 20s and had just had her 3rd child. Between caring for her own children and working full-time as a teacher, she was exhausted. My azo, great-grandma, asked around Lugang for help with chores. Yaba Great Aunt's grandmother heard about this and pleaded with ahma to take in the 12-year-old girl. Ahma was willing, but Agong refused. With their meager income and the small household filled with family members and children, how could they take on the burden of caring for a deaf-mute child? Yaba Great Aunt's grandmother got on her knees and begged my Agong to take the 12-year-old girl in. The grandmother was getting older and couldn't watch the girl much longer. She knew that her granddaughter's life with them would be much better. She gripped my Agong's hand with tears in her eyes and told him that, despite being a Yapa, her granddaughter was an incredibly capable girl. Agong watched the deaf-mute girl standing beside her kneeling grandmother, quiet, helpless. He saw how turning away this child meant a life of hardship, maybe even a death sentence. Agong relented, and our family took her in. For the next 67 years until her death, Yaba Great Aunt would be with our family. Even though a child herself at the time, she worked day and night cooking, cleaning, and watching the kids. To communicate, she improvised her own pidgin sign language that the kids learned. Because my grandparents were busy with work, Yaba Great Aunt spent the most time with the kids, and for some, this pidgin sign language was their first language. Ahma would go on to have 6 other children. Great Aunt had an incredible talent with the kids. Every night she would marshal all of them together like an army unit and have them line up in the narrow hall to take turns to go into the closet-sized bathroom. She made sure they all showered, brushed their teeth, and went to bed on time, and in the morning, she would wake up before everyone to cook breakfast. She devoted her life to taking care of these children, one of them being my father, until they all grew up and left the house. She did this all without pay. Some aspects of her story called to mind Alex Tizon's essay, My Family's Slave, and I questioned my father and my second aunt about this. They reminded me of what I had seen, that unlike the mother in Tizon's essay, Ahma never looked down on Yaba Great Aunt and always treated her with love and respect. Also, Yaba Great Aunt in her later years had her own autonomy. When my grandparents moved to California to take care of newborn me, Great Aunt was left alone in charge of the old family home and worked to support herself. Yaba Great Aunt cooked and cleaned for local restaurants as well as babysat for a family across the street. The family's kids loved her. The 4 to 5 year old children would often brave the wide street to our home and yell, "Yapa, yapa," so she would play with them. I have these unfocused memories from age 3 of Yaba Great Aunt wiping down the smooth wood of the family altar. Wanting attention, I would yell, "Yapa!" and wave my hands, and she would come over and pinch my cheek and smile. Years later, when I visited Lukang in my early 20s, I saw Yaba Great Aunt, her face more wrinkled, her hair much whiter, but still very active and jovial. She pointed to a funeral portrait of a akong, made a thumbs-up gesture, and then a carrying motion. My aunt would translate, "She says you were akong's favorite. He carried you all the way from the US to Taiwan as a baby." Yaba Great Aunt would then pat my arm, and I would feel a profound sense of connection to her and my akong, along with this old brick 2-story house with its smell of incense and stories of the past. My ahma would watch with kind, sad eyes. Ahma felt such love and appreciation for Yaba Great Aunt. She would always say, "Heaven has been so kind to have given such a person to me." But she also carried this deep sense of guilt and debt towards Yaba Great Aunt. I am unsure if it's a dream or a false memory, but there's this image of ahma and Yaba Great Aunt sitting alone together in front of the family altar, the ceiling fluorescent lighting their white hair. Ahma, with tears in her eyes, signed in that pidgin sign language to Great Aunt, "I'm so sorry for making you sacrifice your whole life for us." Great Aunt held my grandma's hand and with the other signed to her, "I would have died if you didn't take me in. Thank you for giving me a family." The 2 old women held each other's hands and cried. Thank you so much for listening. Special thanks to Linsho Shi for sharing much of the content for this essay, Xinyi Shi for her editorial insight, and my father for his stories and guidance. In this article, you can also see my second aunt translating Yaba Great Aunt's sign language. There's Mandarin and there's English subtitles. I also want to give a special thanks to Ho Chi Tsai and TaiwaneseAmerican.org for giving me a platform to share this story. I originally wrote this piece for an Instagram post, and it's thanks to Ho Chi for helping me expand it, along with Andrea Chu and Leona Chen, who helped me shape the article to the form that you see today. If you are interested in my writing or my work, you can check out my website, www.jamesYshi.com. That's spelled JAMESYSHIH.com. I also have a podcast. It's called Yin and Yang Podcast, YIN ampersand YOUNG podcast, and that's on iTunes, and it's also there's a link on my website on the left-hand side. And for my Instagram, it's again James Y Shi. That's my Instagram handle, and I post some cool stuff there. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.